Why did your strategy cause me to lose money? That's how an email started that I received last week from someone who'd watched one of my videos about Roth conversions and then run their own scenario using Right Capital. And when they modeled a Roth conversion, it caused them to have less money, not more money. Roth conversions are a powerful tax minimization strategy in retirement, but there are some instances when a conversion could do more harm than good. So in today's video, I'm going to walk through some of the reasons you shouldn't do a Roth conversion. But first, my name's Kevin Lum. I'm a certified financial planner, and this channel is dedicated to helping 1 million people retire without worry. Now, as you know, if you've watched any of my videos, Roth conversions can provide tremendous tax savings in retirement, often over $1 million. But there are some times when doing a conversion can do more damage than good. So just a second, we're going to look at some of the reasons you should not do a Roth conversion. But before I do that, just quickly, if you are new to conversions, a Roth conversion is the process of transferring money from a pre-tax retirement account into an after-tax Roth IRA. So an example of a pre-tax retirement account would be a traditional IRA, a traditional 401k, SEP IRA, simple IRAs, etc. Now, interestingly, inherited IRAs, while technically a pre-tax retirement account, cannot be converted into Roth IRAs. I have another whole video talking specifically about inherited IRAs. Now, there are no limitations on Roth conversions. If you have $1 million in a pre-tax traditional IRA, you can technically convert the entire $1 million tomorrow into a Roth IRA if you wanted to. And the benefit is that the converted dollars are going to grow tax-free forever in your Roth IRA. You won't have to worry about RMDs at age 73 or 75. And for most people, your heirs will inherit a pot of money that's going to be completely tax-free. And so often doing a Roth conversion can save you $1 million+ in a tax-adjusted portfolio over your life. So what's not to love? Well, there are a few reasons you might not want to do a Roth conversion. The first reason, and I'm going to admit this is not the most technical reason, but you just don't want to. Roth conversions aren't for everyone, and that's fine. Some people simply cannot stomach paying a large tax bill up front. They would rather spread their withdrawals over, say, 30 years and pay taxes over 30 years rather than having a giant, painful tax bill spread over 5 years. Because if you've run your own conversion numbers, you know that you will often have a very large tax bill up front. And that's going to reduce your cash on hand, which for some people makes them feel more insecure. So even if all the numbers say it's the best decision and puts you in a more secure financial position, for some people, having to take $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 out of the retirement savings up front to pay for these conversions is just more than they can handle. Now, will the decision not to make a Roth conversion potentially cost maybe $1 million over your life? Maybe, but the truth of the matter is, finances are a personal decision. You get to decide. You don't have to explain your decision to anyone. The second reason you shouldn't do a conversion, and honestly, this is one of the biggest reasons that I see, is that you don't have the cash outside of your retirement account, so your traditional IRA. You don't have the cash to pay for the taxes on the conversions. And this is one of the biggest issues that hurts the long-term success of your Roth conversion. If you have to pay for the conversion out of your IRA or out of your tax-deferred account, depending on your longevity and your investment strategy, you may actually reduce the long-term value of your portfolio, even on a tax-adjusted basis. Let me show you an example using Right Capital. So here we are back at Phil and Claire Dunphy again. This time, I believe I have that they're both 64 years of age, and they both have $500,000 in their IRA. So $1 million total, $500,000 in Claire's IRA, $500,000 in Phil's IRA. So the question is, does it make sense to do a Roth conversion? So let's go over here to the tax center. Let's look at distributions. We're going to see, does it make sense to do a Roth conversion? Well, here we can see that doing a Roth conversion, Phil and Claire have $1 million in their IRA. They seem like they'd be a great candidate to do a Roth conversion, but the Roth conversion, at least at the income brackets it's set at, is going to cost almost $923,000 in a tax-adjusted portfolio. Now, we're not playing with the withdrawal sequence at all yet. We'll do that in a minute. But so you can see, converting the 24% tax bracket, not a smart idea. What about the 22% tax bracket? Now it only costs them $365,000 in a tax-adjusted ending portfolio. There's a little bit of benefit at 22 or at the 12% tax bracket, but just barely. And $22,000 over a 30-year time horizon probably still isn't worth doing that conversion. So then you could take them down to the 10%, it's $48 more. So why isn't the Roth conversion saving Phil and Claire money? If you watched the last video, it could often be $1 million in tax savings. So what's the issue here? Well, the issue is that Phil and Claire don't have any cash outside their taxable account. And so they're having to pay for the conversion from inside of their traditional IRA. So it's taking money from the traditional IRA that could be invested or that could be converted, and it's having to pay the taxes. So if we go over here and look at the comparison, we see that the value of the portfolio, let's take it up to the 22% tax bracket. So you can see here that the ending value of the portfolio without a conversion is 1.7, almost 1.8 million. The total portfolio value is with the conversions 1.4. So they end up with less money at the end. But then let's come up here and see the federal taxes paid. So by doing the conversion, they save almost $300,000 in federal taxes. So $500,000 as opposed to $200,000. So there is a tax savings, but it reduces the portfolio value because they had to pay taxes up front. So now they have less money invested. Whereas if, let's come over here, let's go to their account. Let's give them an extra, in this taxable account, let's give them $500,000. So now let's go back over to the tax center. Let's look the same. Now we see that that conversion at that level is going to be $300,000 more in tax adjusted portfolio. We come down here. Let's play with the withdrawal sequence as well. Now, converting at the 12% tax bracket or 15% tax bracket when the current tax cut sunsets, along with the right withdrawal sequence, can mean almost $851,000 more in tax-adjusted ending portfolio than a strategy without doing a conversion. The third reason you should consider not doing a Roth conversion is if you plan on leaving a large chunk of your assets to a charity. Because if you're going to leave a large chunk of your money to a charity, most charities are going to be tax exempt. So it would make sense to convert a traditional IRA, pay the taxes, and then leave the Roth IRA to a charity. Since the charity receiving these assets will not pay taxes for selling the assets and for withdrawing them, prepaying taxes by converting to a Roth IRA essentially means the charity would get less money, not more money. And in addition, once you turn 70 and a half, you can begin taking qualified charitable distributions from your account up to $100,000 a year. And once you're required to take RMDs, those QCDs or those charitable qualified distributions can count as your RMD. So if you're charitably inclined and plan to do a Roth conversion, it might make sense to leave a portion of your savings in your IRA and simply take a QCD to cover your future RMD. So that's another thing to consider. If you are planning on leaving a portion of your tax-deferred accounts to charity, you don't want to do a Roth conversion on those dollars. The fourth reason you might not want to do a conversion, or at least you want to delay doing your conversion, is if your income and your tax rate will drop later in retirement. Now, this isn't always the case. Sometimes it actually is better to just go ahead and pay slightly higher taxes and get everything converted. But this is especially true if you're going to retire to a low tax state. So if you're a resident of California and you plan to retire to Florida, a Roth conversion may not make sense, at least until you're a resident of Florida. California has a very expensive income tax rate, whereas Florida has no state income tax, and so it might make sense to delay the Roth conversions until you're a resident of, say, Florida. But it's not just Florida. There are 13 states that either don't have income tax or they don't tax distributions from your tax-deferred accounts like your 401k and your IRA. So you might want to delay starting the conversion process until you've moved and become a resident of the lower tax states. Fifth reason you might not want to do a Roth conversion is if you have a shorter than average life expectancy. That's going to mean fewer years of potentially large RMDs, and this is especially true if your heirs are in a lower tax bracket. So if your heirs are in a lower tax bracket, it doesn't make sense for you to convert at a higher tax bracket and then for them to inherit the money tax-free. It would be better for them to inherit a larger pot of money than they can pay for the conversions, or they can pay the taxes at a lower tax bracket. But you need to analyze your unique situation. The next reason you might consider not doing a Roth conversion is shadow taxes or fees, right? IRMA surcharges and qualifying for ACA subsidies are something you want to take into consideration. It's not necessarily a reason not to convert. In many cases, it could make sense to pay a few extra $1,000s in fees to save hundreds of thousands of dollars in the future by taking Roth conversions. And those calculations should also be included in your timeline, right? When should we start conversions? How long should we do conversions? Because then you want to dial everything in just right. And a tool like Right Capital is really helpful for helping you see the impact of a Roth conversion, but often you're going to have to do some manual calculations to figure out. Actually, it only makes sense really for me to do 3 years of Roth conversions because I'm going to do a QCD on some of the money in the IRA, and I don't want to trigger an IRMA surcharge, or I need to qualify for the ACA subsidies. And so you can start with a tool like, New Retirement or Right Capital, but then you may need to do some manual calculations or work with your advisor. And the thing I hope you take away from this video is you need to carefully weigh the pros and cons of your situation before committing to a Roth conversion. Because once you do a Roth conversion, it's over. There's no going back. And if you have an advisor, this is where you want to use them. And if they dismiss your interest in a Roth conversion, find a new advisor who will do tax planning. I've talked to so many people over the past few months after releasing the video on Roth conversions who told me their advisor told them, don't do a Roth conversion, don't worry about that, doesn't make sense. And that may be true, but if they're not willing to at least run the numbers for you, you want to find a new advisor. Roth conversions can have huge tax savings when implemented strategically over time, but they also have the potential to backfire. Now, if you want to play around with the numbers yourself, I'll put a link in the show notes so you can get access to Right Capital, limited access to Right Capital, but you'll be able to use the tax center and kind of play around with Roth conversions. But as I said earlier, like Right Capital is only going to take you so far. You're going to need to do some manual calculations, and most likely you'll want to talk to a financial advisor who specializes at that. Now, also, if you haven't watched my other video, if this is the first video maybe you've ever seen of mine, you haven't watched my video on the power of a Roth conversion, you can watch that now.